Story 1. I don't get bored. I can have full-on conversations with myself in my head. I can sit by a window and count cars as they pass. I can walk around outside looking for cool rocks for 9 hours. I can pick up a random pencil and make silly high school beats with it. I don't get bored because I love being with myself. Story 2. I love being alone. I have friends and I talk to people easily, but going and doing things alone does not bother me. I get to do things at my own pace and my own schedule. I do not have to worry about anyone's happiness but my own. Story 3. I genuinely struggle to make and keep friends, even though I am a normal person and there is nothing particularly wrong or unusual about me. When I tell someone I cannot make friends, they are always shocked and talk about how easy I am to talk to and how nice I am. Story 4. I actually don't know whether I am an introvert or extrovert. I can talk to a complete stranger for hours and want to make friends, but at the same time, I enjoy my me time and can stay alone for weeks. Story 5. I do not like to travel. I have traveled, but I just do not enjoy it. I am perfectly content sitting at home in the city where I was born, doing the things I enjoy. Story 6. I don't care. Since I was a kid, I didn't care. I had to learn to care, and it's only about very specific things. I'm not a psychopath or sociopath. I was diagnosed with autism later in life, and it took a long time to understand that the apathy is probably lifelong burnout. Story 7. Any single trait I have, there is someone else on this vast planet who has the same. Even though the combination of those traits makes me unique, I believe that at my core I am not that different from other people. I wish we could all see that and live peacefully. Story 8. I have developmental prosopagnosia or face blindness that is not caused by brain damage. According to Wikipedia, it has a prevalence of 2.5%. I have never met anyone else with the disorder, so I feel confident in saying I am not like most people in that way. Story 9. I cannot connect with people very well. I genuinely believe there is a reason for that, a way that I am genuinely different. It has been called different things. Story 10. This one's a bit of a paradox. I hope it makes sense, but I know I am like most people. For example, whenever I have a new or unique thought, my immediate conclusion is, wow, so many people must think about this and don't say it, but I bet it is not unique at all. You can see in the responses to this post that many of them are repeated by others, so they are very much like other people. Story 11. I often step in when others feel uncomfortable or unsure about taking action. I reported abuse when I was 14 years old because I knew what I was hearing was not right. Story 12. I do not understand the point of having friends. I have never enjoyed it and still do not understand it. When I was a teenager trying to fit in, I would always dread hanging out. I can understand relationships because you develop a deeper connection that makes me feel something. You only have to think about one other person. I cannot handle big groups, especially because it overwhelms me. Story 13. I believe I can smell chemical signals, but science tells me humans lost this ability thousands of years ago. Story 14. I do not care in the slightest about buying things that will impress other people. I shun materialism anyway, so I already despise having to buy goods to begin with. Even if I won the lottery, I would never buy a car or clothes or anything meant to show off that you are doing well. It just gives me the ick. Story 15. I genuinely believe that mainstream entertainment is bland by design. It is formulaic and predictable, so it can be casually appealing to as broad and wide an audience as possible. I do not hate popular things just to be different or because I think it makes me cool. I legitimately find them uninteresting and unappealing. Story 16. I genuinely love spending time alone and prefer doing things by myself. However, I also feel very lonely because I have no one to hang out with. My tastes in almost everything are quite unusual, so maybe I just have not found the right friend yet in my life. Story 17. I genuinely believe that some people would be happier dead, myself included. What I mean is that being forced to keep suffering is not a life worth living. Whether someone is suffering from physical or mental illness, forcing them to keep going is cruelty disguised as kindness or love. Life is so chaotic and painful that death seems peaceful and welcoming in comparison. Some people see that as a problem or a temporary situation that can change with time. For me, it is not. I have been craving my own death for over 20 years, and I believe I have given it enough time. Some hear what I say and think I need help or that I am evil for thinking that way. In reality, I have too much empathy and do not want anyone, including myself, to suffer through life. Story 18. I love being on my own. I used to have large groups of friends for years, but it always ended in drama and doing things I did not want to do to please others. Just give me a cabin in the woods and my guitar, and I will be a happy man. And maybe a cat. Story 19. I am not driven by money. I just want to make sure I am not stressed about it. I do not care for luxuries or having more money than I can spend in a lifetime. Money is not real, and people who are desperate for it seem very strange to me. Story 20. Mine is more of a disability, but I don't notice things like physical objects around me, almost not at all unless they are moving. I obviously see things in my way, but decorations or objects that I don't interact with, I have to look for them. I can visit a room every day for months and suddenly notice something that has been there the whole time. It is rather annoying. I might just be dull. Luckily, I can do other things that some people can't, so I guess push and pull, or maybe that is just me making myself feel better about it. Story 21. I do not like the outdoors. If it is any hotter or cooler than the 60s or 70s Fahrenheit, I do not want to be outside. I also hate being around insects. That is not to say that I do not sometimes need some fresh air. I am good with a 30-minute walk in the park. I have no desire to go camping or hiking. Story 22. I am not asexual or aromantic, yet I genuinely feel no desire for relationships or sex. It is not out of any bitterness or nihilism. Seeing other couples makes me happy or, at worst, indifferent. I used to think I missed out on a lot, but now, even hearing about young love or attractive promiscuous people, I do not feel any inkling of envy. Sometimes I even feel curiosity, whereas before I would avoid hearing about such things. I am not a monk, though. I still like to masturbate like anyone else, and I still feel tinges of envy when it comes to other aspects of life such as money, opportunities, and lifestyle, but not relationships or sex. Story 23. I don't miss people. I love people, but I can go months or even years without talking to or seeing them, and it does not diminish the relationship for me. I've had family get very upset with me, and I've lost friends who accuse me of being standoffish and not liking them because I haven't visited or invited them over. However, it's just not necessary for me to keep that bond strong. Just knowing they're out there and safe is enough for me. For some reason, this does not apply to my husband. I wouldn't want to be away from him. Story 24. Even if people have done awful things, they are not necessarily completely bad, and I can usually understand their perspective even if I do not agree with it. Story 25. I never really get bored anymore. Sometimes I do not know what to do, and I sit and stare at the wall, but I do not really mind. It is nice to just sit and be at times. Story 26. I am ridiculously sentimental, and it is very detrimental to my life. Everything is tied to a memory, and if the memory is bad or related to someone I have lost, I can never use or sometimes even see the thing again without intense grief. This means I am in almost constant emotional agony, but also cannot throw anything away because it feels like I am throwing away the memory of the person who gave or showed me the thing. For example, I still have stuffed toys from when I was a child, but I have to keep them hidden because they were given to me by people who have since died, and seeing them causes me to relive the loss. The same is true of a lot of my clothes, the duffel bag I used to take when I would see my ex who lived in another country, certain furniture, my old dog's lead, and so on. Story 27. I am a radical leftist who believes that owning guns for protection is acceptable. However, assault rifles should be banned because they are designed to kill as many people as possible. I think guns for protection are fine, especially for tiny women living alone or people with families they want to protect in remote areas. A handgun or similar weapon is sufficient. Story 28. I read a lot, maybe 25 to 30 books a year, mostly fiction with a good sprinkling of deep dive nonfiction. I find that most people do not seem to have book recommendations, do not have library cards, and buy books that they never get around to reading. Story 29. I pay especially close attention to the social observations of people with schizoid personalities. It is like listening to an anthropologist talking about your own civilization. They can explain quirky human behaviors that the rest of us never considered. Story 30. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I genuinely feel like no one else is overthinking and overanalyzing social interactions the way I do. I am also constantly aware of myself, always aware of my physical form and the fact that I am being perceived. I feel like I am insane. Story 31. I think my difficulty falling asleep is somewhat self-induced because I love how quiet it is at night when everyone else is sleeping. A part of me wants to stay awake to enjoy the silence. Story 32. I do not care about career achievements and am content with making enough money to live however I want. I do not need love or companionship and find joy in being single, with no one to bother me about anything. I have no desire to look good, fit in, or be popular because the attention from irrelevant people is pointless. I have no interest in trends or fads and would rather spend my time doing things that bring me joy and increase my knowledge. I do not want to reproduce or have children because I have no desire to continue my bloodline or leave a legacy. I genuinely do not care about my own species because life has shown me that humans will always be self-serving, obnoxious, and destructive. If humankind goes extinct, I will not shed a tear. Story 33. According to my parents and relatives, I was a very polite person from an early age. They say I learned and practiced many etiquette rules on my own. I worry that this might be a selfish thought, but I can empathize much better, especially compared to my peers. This may be a negative trait of mine. I cannot swear. I do not have a physical problem. It is completely psychological. I came very close to swearing once. It was like my brain opened the task manager. As soon as the first letter of the curse word left my mouth, I stopped talking, stopped breathing, lost my balance for a few seconds, and experienced temporary blindness. 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder. Story 34. Music should use repetition sparingly, and loops should always gradually evolve and morph into the next section. Story 35. I don't really like music by itself. I prefer podcasts or YouTube videos. I listen to music only when I'm daydreaming or creating stories to match the energy and mood. Story 36. Silence is not awkward to me. I am comfortable if a conversation stalls. Sometimes it is okay to just think and process what has already been said. There is no need to pressure ourselves to keep talking just for the sake of keeping a conversation moving. Story 37. I do care whether my car's condition and my driving might be hindering you from getting where you are going. I try to be as out of your way as I possibly can, drive at a moderate speed without being dangerous, watch the road ahead like a hawk for joggers and dog walkers, stay in my own lane on the highway, and maintain a good speed without racing. I am not an every man for himself, forget the rest of you kind of person. From what I've seen of the vast amount of antisocial behavior of other people on the road, and particularly in the supermarket, people's behavior with where they keep their shopping carts while browsing, and people berating retail clerks and waitstaff, having worked retail myself, that is something I will never do. The level of self-entitlement is off the charts. I still care and will be considerate of you. I will meet you halfway and not try to purposely upset you. Also, please respect other people's personal space. You don't need to stand 2 inches away from the next person in line and then move up to the payment kiosk before they have even finished bagging their groceries. Story 38. I am a musician who has no desire to become famous. I do not want to tour or perform every night or anything like that. I want to play my songs in small song circles and songwriter nights at local venues a few times a month. Then go home to my husband, children, and the life I love. I truly love my life the way it is. Story 39. I genuinely intend goodness for every person I interact with. I will go out of my way for anyone who needs it and will truly appreciate it. People have accused me of having impure motives because they do not understand the concept of not being transactional. Story 40. I do not like to ask for things. For example, coworkers ask for work trips to receive travel expenses and request promotions or salary increases. I know this might be a problem in the future, but I just feel it is wrong. Story 41. Why does gender identity or genitals determine how I am supposed to act? It is completely unreasonable, and many people are obsessed with enforcing arbitrary social rules based entirely on their gender identity. I see this in both cisgender and transgender individuals, but honestly, cisgender people seem the most delusional about it to me. Saying, I am a man, so I must never show emotion and love sports, is as illogical to me as saying, I am a redhead, so I have to grow tomatoes and go bowling on Fridays. I feel like I am going crazy. What are any of you talking about? Can't we just like what we like and act how we want without attributing it to gender? Story 42. I enjoy spending time with children and elderly people. They have refreshing perspectives and a certain playfulness. It is enjoyable. People my age, however, are too caught up in the rat race to even remember the purpose. Story 43. I am not afraid of how others look at me. I focus on my own mistakes and shortcomings and bring them up in conversations all the time. I express this openly to everyone who cares to listen. I try to create an environment where everyone can relax and collaborate. I am a top performer within my field and have a lot going for me in other areas. White, attractive, intelligent, tall, Danish with birthright citizenship, resourceful parents, no disabilities, cisgender, and heterosexual. So yes, I am privileged and want to use that to make the world better. Story 44. I am starting to believe I am not like others because everything mentioned here is being applied to me. I do not know what to think right now. Story 45. I hate beer, wine, tea, and coffee. I really cannot even stand the smell. Also, chocolate. So that must be an incredibly small portion of the global population, I assume. Story 46. I truly do not care about money beyond meeting my basic needs. If I came into a lot of money, I would donate most of it and only keep enough to provide for my children. I would rather have a small hobby farm and raise chickens than buy a fancy car or expensive clothes. Story 47. I do not miss people in their absence, and I do not crave their proximity. Friendships from childhood to adulthood, even family, are important, but I can go a long time without speaking to anyone without it negatively affecting my state of mind. I always feel awkward when someone tells me that they miss me. Do I lie and say it back? That feels wrong to do. Story 48. I do not care to post anything online. Only the people who need to know about my life are those close to me. Story 49. I genuinely love talking about what goes on behind movies more than I enjoy talking about the movie itself. I am not talking about stage makeup or who directed it. For example, I love how strange the existence of Twilight is. Story 50. My sensory system can become extremely overactive, beyond debilitating sensory overload. When I experience hormonal fluctuations and other triggers for my nerve pain, I develop intense olfactory abilities. I can detect very distinct smells over distances, such as across a large room or open office space. I can smell the electricity within walls, which has been alarming on more than one occasion, and I can smell the insides of living things. I can smell people in normal health and hygiene digesting food and forming waste. It is horrible. I can also smell my dog's internal organs. No one else can, and it makes me appear crazy. I have detected gas leaks and faulty wiring, as well as predicted when someone is about to feel sick, so it can be helpful. If I had this ability all the time, I would not survive. Story 51. I often consciously feel various glands working, which might seem unusual, but I find it comforting. I am not sure how many other people are aware of these sensations because I rarely mention them. For example, I know when my armpit sweat glands activate for the day. I feel a rush of adrenaline from my belly spreading throughout my body when I trip. I used to notice salivation before a meal, similar to milk letdown experience during breastfeeding, but not as much anymore. When I breastfed my baby, I always had an intense, achy milk letdown. Story 52. I look very young. When I was 18, I looked like I was 12. At 30, I looked like I was 17, and even at 40, I look like I am 20. Sometimes, I need to show my identification to buy alcohol. When I was getting my driver's license at 18, people thought I had stolen the car because I was driving at such a young age. Story 53. I do not like having pet dogs or cats in my house. I have had dogs, and I really did not like it. I like other people's well-behaved furry animals, but to me they are just expensive responsibilities that limit my ability to be impulsive with my free time. Story 54. Public school prioritizes unions over students and has done so for a long time. Most parents tolerate this because, for them, it is daycare first and education second. Story 55. This is a strange situation that I am not sure anyone else experiences, but I cannot get angry at people at all. I have been scammed, taken advantage of, bullied, and even worked in customer service. Nothing people do provokes me. I have never yelled at or raised my voice at anyone in my life, nor have I had the urge to do so. It is certainly not normal. Story 56. I do not like complaining about my husband or children. Finding friendships with people who also do not like complaining about their loved ones is hard. Story 57. I end relationships that no longer serve me without guilt, including former friends and family members. I do not engage in drama, manipulation, or toxic behaviors, and I will not tolerate them in my life. My circle is small and trusted, and I prefer it that way. Story 58. Pain does not bother me as long as it does not impact my mobility or dexterity. After dealing with chronic pain for almost 10 years, I find that pain itself is unavoidable. My priority is being able to still do things unimpeded. Story 59. Naps are lame. Unless I am sick, there is no reason to sleep between the hours of 5 a.m. and 10:30 p.m. Story 60. I find it exhausting to receive a text message, direct message, or letter and typically do not look at them for several days after I get one. Story 61. Because I am autistic and have a strong sense of justice, I have no problem speaking out and addressing issues when something feels wrong. This has caused problems with almost all of my employers, and I sometimes regret speaking out and standing up for people who would never do the same for me. However, it was always the right thing to do. It led to positive changes such as raises, benefits, and more respect for employees at all levels. Over the years, I have definitely learned to communicate more effectively and choose my battles wisely. Story 62. Years of wearing sunscreen have paid off because I am now 33, and someone said they thought I was 20 the other day. Story 63. I can easily recategorize people in my mind based on the information they provide. I was very interested in a guy, then I received new information, and now he is just a friend with benefits. I also enjoy being friends with my exes. If you are in my life, you are in my world. But if you are not, I can be living with you in a relationship and be over you and everything that happened the moment I walk out the door. Story 64. I do not care for pornography. Now that it is everywhere and forced into our algorithms, statements like "everybody does it" do not apply to me. Story 65. Love how half of these replies are just introverts. All of them say the exact same things. I swear Reddit users are all clones of one another. Story 66. I like destroying things. Anytime I show my hobbies, some people look at me weird. I like blowing things up and anything that can cause damage, to be honest. When I explain this, I get looked at like I am crazy. There is something about the rush, man. Story 67. I have no desire for a career. I want to have my own business with no one telling me what to do. I believe most people are incompetent. They are just older than me. Story 68. I do not watch a lot of television shows, and I have not watched many of the very popular movies either, including but not limited to Suits, Gossip Girl, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Indiana Jones, and the Jaws franchise. Story 69. I enjoy being alone. I don't mind hanging out with others, but I really love my own company. I also don't mind silence at all and often prefer just sitting quietly with someone rather than having a full conversation. Story 70. I enjoy many non-romantic movies mainly for the romantic elements. If anyone else feels the same, please let me know. Story 71. I know this falls into the annoying "I am not like other girls" trope, but I just do not understand spending so much money on the beauty industry. I keep it simple and do not need full glam and expensive nails to be happy. Story 72. I don't like doom scrolling and almost never do it. I used to have many reels sitting in my direct messages to watch, sent by my friends, but I never watched them. I ended up deleting Instagram and all other social media except YouTube, Reddit, and Pinterest because I just don't have the patience. I would rather be doing my hobbies. Story 73. I am half country mouse and half city mouse. I have a broader view of my fellow Americans than most. Story 74. I do not really care where we go, what we do, or what we watch. I am flexible. Some people say that, but do not really mean it. They actually have a preference and are just trying not to cause trouble. I am the type who truly does not care 95% of the time. If I do care, I say so immediately and avoid the back and forth social dance. Story 75. If I survive my husband, die alone, and the police find my deceased body months later, I would not mind at all. Not everyone likes a lot of company. Story 76. I just don't understand compulsory monogamy, but I'm also not polyamorous. I date monogamously because it's simpler, and because some of the polyamorous relationships I've observed have imploded spectacularly. If I found out my partner had cheated on me, the most I would do would be to ask her to get a sexually transmitted infection test before we next were intimate. When everyone on this platform gets upset about cheating, I don't know how to respond. On one hand, it's terrible to be lied to. On the other hand, people only lie because reactions to sex outside exclusive relationships are so extreme. I don't understand why they are so extreme. I suppose it's because there is an assumption that if you cheat, you must want to leave your primary relationship, and the threat of being left is emotionally very scary. However, I don't think that assumption holds true in all cases, even though I have been dumped in those circumstances a couple of times. My dad was most likely clinically a psychopath, and this is the one opinion I hold that makes me think I may have at least partly inherited whatever his condition was. I was also, in early childhood, raised in a kind of throuple: my dad, his ex-wife, and my mum, who was his lodger and with whom he had been having an affair prior to his divorce. Everyone got on pretty well, so maybe it has altered my perception of things. Story 77. With pregnant women, I can guess the gender of their first baby with 100% accuracy. My husband even jokes that we should open a business and charge slightly less than an ultrasound. Story 78. Not interested in cooking, baking, food talk, or recipes. I don't know new ingredients or sauces. I just eat almost the same standard food every day, and I am totally fine with that. Story 79. I literally do not have friends. I worked very hard to get to this point, and I love it. I have never been good at being a friend, and it is overwhelming. Story 80. I don't like sweets at all. My mom couldn't feed me applesauce when I was a baby because I would scream. I never eat cake, cookies, ice cream, Halloween candy, balsamic vinegar, sweet corn, or any fruit except avocado and fresh tomatoes. I do not eat chocolate, any of it. I've never finished more than one sip of a soda, even if there was nothing else to drink. There is nothing physical like a weird genetic taste bud mutation. Sweet just tastes so bad I vomit. Story 81. Other people do whatever they want. I must have broken when I was young or something because I genuinely want people around me to be happy even if it costs me everything. And it has too. They just kept taking. Story 82. My sense of direction is so bad that people often think I am joking. If I am walking one way and I stop, even if I have not turned around or anything, I often cannot work out if I am still facing the right way. When I am not working from home, I get lost in my relatively small workplace where I have been for 8 years. Nothing else seems obviously wrong with my intelligence, but I think if I had my eyes closed, you could hold me upside down and I would not know. Story 83. I have an IQ of 162. I notice many things that others just miss. However, I have stopped caring. I was never willing to flatter others, so I never advanced in my work. Now, I do not care. Story 84. I have worked overnight shifts for years now, and I much prefer it. My psychiatrist is very focused on it being statistically unhealthy, but I mitigate most of the common health and mental health issues. My spouse works with me, so we do not have timing issues. We get a decent amount of sleep. A couple of friends also work overnight, and the friends and family who do not usually accommodate hanging out in the mornings. I do not live on chips and excessive amounts of caffeine. I prepare meals and keep my drinks within a healthy range. Is my life perfect? Of course not. But I have adjusted to my hours after many years, and it works for me. Watching my coworkers experience high turnover from burnout, Sleep deprivation, depression, and poor nutrition clearly highlights the concern. Overnight work is not for everyone, and I understand that. But it is better for me than most. Story 85. I don't like to share this story much because it gives off such main character energy, but I'm literally not. I have been a medical anomaly my whole life. I had a febrile seizure as a baby that lasted between 25 and 30 minutes. I developed brain damage that resulted in epilepsy, which was misdiagnosed or undiagnosed until I was 30. I definitely have temporal lobe epilepsy, but I have additional symptoms that don't fully align with it, and my neurologists over the years have not figured it out. I have mystery seizures where I become unconscious but do not convulse, and then I need to recover for 3 days. Additionally, I take cannabidiol oil for my epilepsy, and it helps me in ways that others with epilepsy don't experience. My environment looks physically different, more solid and less claustrophobic. Colors are more vibrant, and I see more blues. For example, I used to wear a beautiful wine red sweater that everyone called purple. It drove me nuts. I started my cannabidiol oil prescription during the summer when the sweater was put away. I took it out a few months later when it got colder. It was definitely purple. Cannabidiol oil also helps me with social cues and coordination. People have suggested autism, and I understand why, but my autism symptoms go away when I am properly medicated with cannabidiol oil, and I don't think that is how it works for autistic people. Story 86. I cannot feel loved by anyone. I love other people, but it never feels reciprocated. My family and friends are absolutely not doing anything wrong either. They say and do lovely things, so I feel awful, but it just never connects or makes me feel good. Story 87. I genuinely believe in God and Jesus Christ, and I hate how the political right has hijacked and polluted my faith for political gain. Story 88. I am double-jointed and went through puberty while playing football in Mammoth Lakes, California, at an elevation of 8,000 feet. I can move in ways other people cannot and have unusually large lungs. Story 89. I don't feel any compulsion or yearning to have children. The thought of passing on my genetics seems like a curse rather than a blessing. Honestly, it's not because I think I'd be a bad parent, but I do think I'd be an overbearing parent whose life would become consumed by anxiety. Not to mention the financial requirements to support another living being when I can barely support myself in this economy. While that may be a choice some are willing to make or think is not a choice because that's just what people do, get married and have children, it's not for me. Story 90. People at my job complain when we do not have anything going on, and I do not understand it at all. I will gladly get paid to sit around on my phone all day. Story 91. Forget labels. Stop saying you are the thing and just be the thing. I want my headstone to read, "She lived by her values." Story 92. My pheromones are broken. I am not safe with anyone. People have said it is the color of my eyes, but everyone in my family has the same color. I am not special. However, some people have hit on me who had no business doing so. It must be my smell. Story 93. I am okay with working a 9-to-5 office job. Growing up, everyone said, I could never just sit 8 hours a day at a cubicle. I need to be active and outside. No thanks. Story 94. I have been self-partnered for 7 years, and my quality of life has improved dramatically. I spent several decades suppressing my own needs to serve others. I am very low maintenance, the perfect state of being for a solo life. Story 95. I am cutting my bread lengthwise. I dislike small sandwiches that require cutting the toppings to size. Story 96. I take the step to follow through on ideas. Many people choose not to do things for various reasons. I focus on the challenge and work to overcome it. I talk to many people who do not follow through on their dreams. Often, deep down they think, I would rather die an unknown great than put my idea out there and have it be rejected. Story 97. I don't mind making eye contact upon entering a shop, cafe, studio, library, or similar places. I like to know who and what is in the space I will be in. Once I am settled, I can zone out and do my thing. Story 98. I have modest standards for household living. I don't mind sharing a space and living with other people. I don't care for having a large house. I would literally live in a van if I could afford to renovate it, just to avoid paying rent or a mortgage. The idea of off-the-grid living has always fascinated me, but I'm too connected to city life to make such a shift. However, being a hybrid of both has always intrigued me. My father traveled and lived in different states across the country during his life, and I definitely get it from him. I know I probably say all of this now as a single person, but honestly, even with accommodating a family, I still feel like that free spirit my dad has would be a part of me. Story 99. I went deaf in Vermont at age 3 in 1974, and today I am a professional ukulele musician in Las Vegas. Story 100. I genuinely do not see what people enjoy about listening to live music. It is the music you already get for free, but now you have to pay for it. You do not get to choose which songs you hear. You are surrounded by loud and usually smelly people trying to sing along. The music is also lower quality when experienced in person. The only exception is a music festival where all the above applies, but at least you can move around and do other things at your leisure. Story 101. People idolize church leaders, political leaders, athletes, actors, those in the music industry, or online personalities. I cannot bring myself to idolize any other human because, regardless of what another person does, they are still just human and, in my opinion, not worthy of idolization. It alarms me that any person would idolize another person. Story 102. I am not very ambitious. I do not crave power. Being the president or a chief executive officer does not appeal to me. I do not understand the desire to get ahead at the cost of your physical and mental well-being. It never occurred to me that normal people feel this way until I heard my friend talking about transferring to a different school solely because they would let him take extra classes in his free time in order to graduate early. Is it worth it? Is it not enough to enjoy your life and take pride in the work you choose to do? Why is everyone so obsessed with reaching the top? A more light-hearted example, I am really unobservant. I am like that character in horror movies who does not notice the killer right behind him because he is reading a book or something. The worst example of this happened in middle school. According to my friends, one guy picked up a chair and threw it at another after a yelling match. This supposedly happened right next to where I was sitting. Of course, I did not notice. I was too busy cleaning my glasses. Story 103. I have been celibate for about 2 decades by choice. I live in a city with brothels. I quit dating 7 years ago. I will die single and happy. I have had girls who wanted to be with me, but I declined. I was fine pleasuring them, though just no penetration. I met my dream girl after I quit dating. She wanted me to be her friend, so I accepted. I even put her in my will and left everything to her. When I decide something, it is final. Story 104. Preferring casual encounters over relationships. I have had long-term relationships and casual encounters. I do not enjoy caring for others or sharing space. I do not want to be emotionally connected to someone. I do not understand how people seemingly develop feelings for someone against their will. Just stop seeing them, and the feelings will go away in 2 to 3 months, similar to most minor drug or chemical addictions. Love is just chemicals. Story 105. I have no fear of speaking in public in front of very large groups. My Catholic school had us start reading at Mass as soon as we could read. We also participated in speech tournaments. I have spoken in front of filled auditoriums and packed churches. I have even spoken off the cuff because other speakers did not show up and they needed someone at the last minute. Story 106. I genuinely enjoy silence. No music, no television, just stillness. Most people find it uncomfortable, but for me, it is peace. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.